Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of MIA Podcast. This podcast episode, we have a fantastic guest, Ben Keeley from Lustec Trailers. I'll introduce Ben in a second, but just a quick reminder to our listeners and viewers, the whole point of the MIA Podcast is to answer the question, will Australian manufacturing ever return to the glory days of the 60s? And here to help us uncover the answer to that question is Ben. So welcome, Ben.
Oh, thank you for having me, John. I really appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. And Ben, I'd love to kick off, as we do with all our guests, just to give you an opportunity to spruik a little bit about Lustec Trailers, the history and how they formed and what they do and where they fit into manufacturing.
Yeah, sure. Lustec is mainly aimed around boutique heavy vehicle transport. We build predominantly low loaders, drop decks, wideners. We've done a few custom pull trailers and stuff like that, custom builds. We've also got a few things in the works in the background, which will be released shortly that I can't speak too much about. But yeah, we're all constantly evolving. Obviously, everybody knows the Lusty name. Chris Lusty is the owner of the business. This is his first go at trying to do something for himself. He's been involved in transport and building trailers pretty much since he came out of the womb, being involved with his old man John and working for him for a long period of time. And Chris is the engineering and prototype wizard of the era, I would say, as far as low loaders and drop deck trailers go. So yeah, that's pretty much our aim, is to build unique, bespoke, best of the best style trailers.
Yeah, I love it. And I think coming from I guess the whole trailer background, I know one of the big things is that whole thing of quality. And I think that one of the big things for us as well is that whole conversation around Australia being known for quality products and our ability to think outside the box as well. I was having a look at some of the, on the Lustec Facebook page. There's some pretty, from my end, there's some pretty amazing trailers on there. I don't know, I haven't been involved in low loaders too much, but it looks like there's some fantastic equipment on there anyway.
Yeah, look, we like to think that we do a pretty good job and we're pretty proud of what we do. And a lot of the custom stuff is actually driven by our customers. One example of a recent product we've released on all of our trailers is a concept called Mag Flag, which is a magnetic oversized flag system. That all come about because of our standard flag style mounting, which is normally just like the wooden pole style. A customer had issues where he was running. There's quite a lot of undulation, and he kept taking the flag mounts off the trailer. Like they kept getting wiped off by hitting something or something like that. And that's what sort of started that whole engineering discussion and concept around, okay, how do we fix this and fix it once? And Mag Flag was born, obviously, another one of Chris's wizard ideas, and now it's standard on 99% of our trailers. So, we like to sort of think outside the box a fair bit, like you said, and a lot of that comes from customers asking can it be done, or, hey, I've got this issue with my trailer, what can we do about it? So,
yeah, I love it. That Aussie ingenuity. Now, is any of that IP, is that exportable? Do you know where that sits at all?
To be honest, we've just sort of focused on ourselves at the moment. But the way we've engineered stuff is it would be adaptable on any trailer. So how we've engineered it, you could have any make and model trailer, you could buy the components from us and they'd bolt on. So yes, in the short version, yes, we could export that, no problem at all.
Yeah, okay, that's good. And who are your main clients?
A lot of the customers, I'd say, come from three main areas in the transport industry. We've got the agriculture side, where the guys have all the farm equipment, headers, cotton pickers, balers. they've got their own excavators and stuff like that. They want to move their own gear / move gear for their mates who don't have the ability to do so. The second one is sort of what I like to class as general transport, which is a lot of guys that will do recovery-based stuff or tow truck-oriented stuff, breakdowns, where they need a wider than standard trailer or a bespoke trailer. And the third is more like asphalt. Guys will, same deal, like asphalt profilers and stuff like that. They're a pretty unique beast. And you can't just put that on a standard flat top where, they'll want a widener for that kind of equipment as well. So those are sort of the three main areas that I would say most of our customers come from.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. Now, in terms of, let's jump into the question and shift focus a little bit about sort of that broad Australian manufacturing, because obviously, I would say is 100% of the trailer built in Australia? Do you import? And if so, how have you dealt with some of the issues that other manufacturers have dealt with, such as like supply chain issues and those sort of issues as well?
Look, 100% of the trailer is built in-house. We outsource some stuff depending on what the trailer is and what it may be, but the stuff we'd outsource would either be profiling or pressing if the part is bigger than what we can profile and press in-house. However, we have our own plasma cutter, our own press. We do a lot of it in-house. The only time we'd outsource it is if it was too big for our machines to do so.
Yep. And I'm assuming that would be outsourced locally anyway?
Correct, yeah. It's all outsourced locally, big profiler companies. Anyone in the trailer game knows who the local ones in Queensland are. How we've sort of stayed in front of the curve, if you want to call it that, as far as supply, is we've just really tried to focus on our planning and have stuff ordered or, planned orders 6 months out. So, we've been in contact with a lot of our main suppliers where, I've got orders for trailer parts, axles and turntables and stuff like that out to, May, June next year, preempting when they're going to be delivered so they're delivered on time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Now, where do you see, where do you see that Lustec fits into the broad scheme of manufacturing, and do you have much of an insight being where you are into the overall broad state of Australian manufacturing now?
Look, I think we would fit into a pretty sort of critical area of the manufacturing side based in the transport industry. There's not a lot of people doing what we do that are doing it well. Also on the custom side, we're, a fast-growing company. Our workforce is planning to double in the next 6 months just based on demand we have right now. So I don't see it slowing down for us anytime soon, regardless of the economical downturn, if you want to call it that we're sort of going through in Australia at the moment. But as far as the demand for transport, it's only really getting higher, and I think more people are focusing on the quality over quantity situation, like we spoke about earlier, which is driving them to not really focus on the dollar amount of the product, more the value of what they can get out of the product after they've purchased it. There's been a lot of imported gear into the transport scene over the last 20 years, and any of the customers that I've spoken to that have dabbled in that area, whether they've owned one or their mates owned one, they say, look, it's great for what it is. It costs not a lot of money compared to what the similar Australian-built equivalent would be. However, they just don't get the life out of it. So there's been a bit of a change in that sort of term where people, when that sort of phase first came in, people were buying them because of how cheap they were, some being up to 50% cheaper of an Australian equivalent. But now they've been through the life cycle of that equipment. They're coming back around to, no, I just want it right. I don't care what it costs, within reason. I just want it to last me, 10, 20, 30 years, and I don't have to worry about it. So there's definitely been a turn there more focused on the Australian market for sure.
Yeah, that's interesting, this conversation, isn't it? Because like there's obviously a social push for sustainability in, I would say, across the globe, and there's people that have more of an extreme view than others, but I think there's this general broad thinking of let's think sustainable, and it's been very interesting. There's this roller coaster ride of manufacturing. I would say like since the 60s, 70s, Australian manufacturing has been on a slow decline, and a lot of that has been, I think, initially kicked off because of the price of goods, our labour costs, etc. But there's been this real shift these days where, absolutely what you said, like if I'm going to get a product, I want it to last more than 2 or 3, 5 years. Prefer to pay a bit more. It's an investment. You can write off, the value on tax depreciation anyway. So why not get something that lasts a bit longer? I mean, the only real issue is probably for a lot of businesses immediate cash flow. But I'm sure there's solutions out there, financing all that as well. And yeah, we've every single manufacturer we're speaking to is saying what you said. There's been a real shift to looking local because one, there's the certification process, which covers you for insurance, and a whole other conversation, but also the lifetime value as well. Big shift towards that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just touching on like what you said there, the cost of goods and labour, it's still fairly high in Australia compared to overseas. I think we'd probably be right up there. If I had to guess, I'd say we'd be top 5 as far as cost of goods and labour worldwide, in the manufacturing side of things, no doubt about it. We're not cheap, and I've seen that firsthand based on employees only, trying to get good guys and what you've got to pay them to keep them, not that they're not worth it, but it's big money.
Yeah. And now something I had a chat with my dad. He was a guest a few podcasts ago, and he was actually in manufacturing during the 60s and all the way through to the early 2000s. And one of the points that we talked about is this whole labour market as well. Something that we have, I've had a look at is, are there policies in place to help, say, apprentices or whatever it is to be able to upskill and, for you to be able to employ someone who has a skill set, which, for a lot of people is probably diminishing. Even things like Boilermakers and all those skills are dropping off. Like where do you see the labour market heading in terms of manufacturing for yourself and broader as well?
Look, I think it's got to level off at some point, because if it continues the way it's going, ultimately all that's going to happen is it's going to drive people to find that labour force, overseas again. So I think it's got to level off at some point, but, that's got to come with the levelling off of, the daily household bills as well. As they keep going up, people keep asking for more money to afford to live. So I think it's sort of bigger than manufacturing on that front. However, I do sort of see if it kept continuing in the same sort of rate of knots that it's travelling at the moment, eventually it's going to get to the point where it's going to become too much for manufacturers. I would obviously like for it to not get to that point because of what we've got going on and the culture we're building within Lustec. But I can see how bigger companies, that'd be a pretty big carrot to dangle when they're, 1,000, 2,000 employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think it's, you're right. Like it's across a lot of different industries, like where, us being in the marketing, we do touch the IT industry a lot. And some of the labor costs there are absolutely insane. And, it's rolled into, like people leaving university expecting well into 6 figures for like a junior position. So, who knows where all that's going to head. But you're absolutely right. Like, I think, we've got to find, I want to see some sort of strategy from government to look at how can we manage the rising labour costs, and for me also to be able to upskill people as well, who people who want to get into trades and those sort of industries as well, help them through the labour market as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. We always push here to have people step up to the plate if they wanted to further their career or upskill. We're all for that.
Yeah, and it's one of those skills that I think it's I don't know, traditionally Australian. Like get out there, roll up your sleeves, and do something physical. It's what our nation was born on, and it's good to see people like yourself out there supporting it as well.
Yeah, look, I believe that skill's generational. There's a certain amount of the current generation that I've seen that don't have that skill. However, the few that we see that do have it, we try and extract every ounce of that out of them, because we only want to see our employees and staff give their best and be their best. So it's a very rare thing to find these days, based on even my own career 10 years ago. It was way more common than now. I don't know why it's changed so much. Maybe it's the internet's fault. I don't know, but it's definitely a rare breed now, and one that we will jump on in a heartbeat just because of how valuable that is.
Yeah, look, I would hazard a guess to say it is partly sort of internet technology. Like I think there's a lot that's dangled in front of people, younger people these days, where it's make money fast and rise the corporate ladder without really doing too much work. I'm just saying a broad statement there, but that's sort of our observations. The byproduct of that is we do have people who probably have a passion for more hands-on work, who take the easy route, and probably get some by for a little bit in their life. But I'd love to see more of a push to help people who have that passion to be able to fulfill it, and have industries out there that nurture those skills and show people a career path as well.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with you on pretty much everything you said there. It's definitely a skill, and we want to nurture and hold on to those people for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. More, I don't know what the solution is yet. Like, once again, let's love to call on government for that. One of my hobbies is I was brought up liking steam trains and things like that, and I was speaking to some of the guys, the engineers, and that when they relaunched a very famous Australian steam train, 3801, and they did a lot of the works up at Newcastle, and they say they struggled just to get young guys on the tools to be able to hand over their knowledge, because they were ex-boiler makers and all that as well, and real struggle. So I think it's a bit of an issue that Australian manufacturing needs to sort out. So I mean, the other thing, just back on that whole sustainability layer, is the actual the transport issue as well. One of the things that we're hearing in the marketplace is that whole thing of like whether you are looking at importing versus local. Typically there's a much cleaner green footprint if you are going local as well. To be able to, if you're a company purchasing your trailers, people can put up their hand and say, the green footprint is far lower than buying overseas.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that, based on sort of the quality of the machines and equipment that most Australian manufacturers have these days. And obviously there has been a bigger push to be sort of clean and green over the last 5 years in particular, with the HVIA and the NHBR bringing out the new Euro 6 standards in the new trucks now, with all the going to cleaner, greener emissions and all of that. That's all going to trickle down into manufacturing as well. So there's definitely a push there from the government to be cleaner and greener, which I think most Australian companies are following suit. and finding ways to do things more efficiently, which is also reducing the footprint, the emissions footprint of that company as well.
Yeah, good. Now, have you guys been involved in many of the grant processes yet?
I would say no, mainly because most of the owners of the trailers or purchasers of the trailers sort of go down that route themselves. Us being a relatively new company as well, we're probably not as well known as everyone else, and we haven't really had to rely on that as a selling point for any of our trailers. And that's probably mainly due to the amount of production we have to achieve to stay afloat as a company. I know the larger manufacturers have had to rely on that and be more involved in that to get potential sales across the line for people, and be more actively involved in securing that for them. But for us, no, it hasn't really been something that we've had to be too involved in lately.
Yeah. Okay. Would the R&D grants be an option?
Yes. So for our company, yes, we do use the R&D grants when we can. Like I said initially at the start of the podcast, I did mention that we have a couple of things in the go at the moment, which has been a big R&D project for us.
Yep.
It'll make a lot of sense when that all sort of gets released in the next couple of months from us, and we try and take advantage of that when we can. And we've got a laundry list of ideas that we've yet to delve into until we're waiting for the opportune moment that we could use that 10 times over.
Yeah, great. Now, obviously, we can't go into the specifics, but the actual process yourself, did you go through a broker? How did you go through the process of actually obtaining the grants?
So Chris went through most of that himself, dealing with his accountants who filed most of the R&D grants for him. But it was more a matter of putting together the paperwork, showing what we're up to, what it cost, what part of the project was R&D, what the outcome of the project was, and then we'd get a grant back at the end after all of that.
Yeah. Okay, because I think they normally they roll on a 12-month basis from memory, but
yes.
And the reason I bring it up is just for our listeners who are in manufacturing as well. One of the things I do keep reiterating is just this whole process of R&D grants and other avenues as well to help with components of your business, especially if you're if you've got some new IP, whatever it might be, to be able to help have the government help to support that and to help fund that part of it as well. And I'm always really interested to see how people went down that path and how straightforward it was as well. I know for some businesses there's a lot of paperwork involved, but for everyone we've spoken to, the end result is generally pretty positive, which then is more of an incentive for you to, as you said, you've got a laundry list to keep pushing through that laundry list as well. Yeah,
I think it's been reasonably straightforward for us because of the nature of what we do. There's probably not a lot of people trying to do what we do as far as pushing the envelope with the trailers, and like I said, a lot of that customer-driven, ideas-based stuff. Generally every 12 months, we'll sit down and figure out what project we want to take on next and try and develop, and that's sort of where we go from that.
Yeah, perfect. Now, if we're just going to shift a bit to some broader sort of manufacturing topics as well. One of the issues that we're hearing from a lot of manufacturers is this rising cost of energy costs to run a manufacturing plant. Where do you guys sit with that? Because I'm guessing your plant's relatively new. You've probably got some relatively new energy solutions. Where do you sit with that?
Look, in the last 12 months, our sort of power bills have gone up by about 25%. And that's with a zero increase in staff. So there was just all of a sudden, we had a letter saying, hey, cost of energy is going up. And the next bill was 25% dearer than the one prior to that. So it's definitely an element of sort of struggle there for us. Obviously, being manufacturing, you've got a lot of welders and a lot of, everything runs on power. There's not a machine that runs on its own. It's everything plugged into the wall. So from the energy standpoint, yeah, it's definitely a factor, and we factor that into our overheads of the job now to try and track it and keep on top of, future predictions and what it may cost us, so we can quote trailers that are further out.
Yeah. Okay. So that's in the cost as well. That's obviously very smart of you. But we've spoken to a few energy people, energy engineers, I suppose you would say, and the predictions for the future of energy costs are continuing to rise, which is I think very interesting, looking at how we are producing energy these days. There's everyone saying, we've got sustainable energy, blah blah blah, but I think one of the biggest issues is the fact that there's an oversupply of sustainable energy back to the grid at the moment, and we've got to upgrade our grid to be able to support that, which is contributing to the costs of energy production as well. Now, do you have any on-site energy production, or that's not really an option at the moment?
Not really an option at the moment, no. It'll be something that we will most likely look into, but that'll be when we end up getting into a site that we own. Yeah. Once we own a site, which we're just sort of not at that stage yet, but yeah, it'd be solar, some sort of battery on site, and that'd run a percentage of the workshop. Yeah,
because I imagine your power supplies would be fairly high. You'd have to have a fair few solar panels to be able to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we currently will probably run on about 600 amp a phase. So it's a fairly high demand on the 3-phase of the shed for sure.
Yeah, there you go. Now, looking forward in terms of the future of Lustec. Once again, not sure how much you can divulge. Is there a path to export any components of the business?
Look, it's definitely something that we'll be looking into in the future. I think we're still probably too new for that to be a viable sort of solution for us at the moment, but it's definitely on the cards. It's a matter of time before other people start noticing the quality of the products that's coming out of Australia. I know there are certain other manufacturers that import and export, trailers and goods overseas based on the quality. So I have no doubt that that'll trickle down into our sort of unique boutique field at some point. When and how that'll be, I'm not sure yet. Components for sure, like I said, the mag flag situation, there's definitely, taking that as an example, that's one element that could be shipped worldwide pretty soon if somebody wanted it. We just haven't really marketed it that way because we're trying to stay focused on the Australian market at the moment. We're not really looking internationally right now, but is it possible in the future? 100%.
Yeah, I'd imagine the American and European markets would be fairly massive for those type of solutions. So we'll keep an eye out for where that heads as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So look, we're heading to the sort of the latter part of the podcast recording. What I normally have here is an opportunity for if there's anything specific you want to share, and more importantly, being a younger company, is there any advice yet that you would give to younger manufacturers from what you've learned in the last, since the company started?
I think a big thing for us has been just trying to network as much as possible with other companies involved, whether it be plate processing or pressing, or our suppliers that supply us all of our welding equipment, or workshop supplies. We try and sort of network as much as possible to try and broaden our horizons as far as opportunities, and that's been a big positive for us. We like to be friendly with everyone, regardless, even if it was competition. We'd sit down and have a beer with anybody just to network and extend our reach and our contacts. I think that's a massive advantage for any company. Never turn away an opportunity to find something out that you don't know, or network with somebody that does something better than you, or that may be able to help you in the future, whether it be now or in 10 years' time. That contact could be invaluable. So my advice would be, networking is key.
Yeah, 100%. And I love what you said about the fact that you do, you're happy to have a sit down and have a beer with what people would say competition. I know from our business as marketers, there's we focus on specific industries, and there's other marketers that focus on other industries that say we don't want to touch, or a specific type of clients. There's always an opportunity to to pass knowledge, to pass referrals, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, the bigger picture, we're all part of an Australian economy. So let's support each other somehow. I don't mind a bit of healthy competition, but at the end of the day, let's work together as well. So why shut your doors to opportunity?
Absolutely agree. There's nothing to gain out of holding a grudge against somebody because they're competition. Like, you're not going to gain anything out of that.
Yeah, you might even find a new craft beer that you like. Who knows?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm always open to that. So look, final sort of thoughts. The question of, will Australian manufacturing ever return to the glory days of the 60s? What's your take on that question?
As of right now, I would say personally no, and that's purely based on the cost of wages, energy, materials. Back in the 60s, 70s, all of that was comparable across the board, whether it was built in Australia, built in America, or built over in Asia. Wouldn't matter where it was built. The costs of labour and stuff was comparable. I think that's combated by the quality, but the quality at the moment's outweighing the quantity. So you need the quantity to get it back to where it was, and have big manufacturing plants and sites turning out 500 trailers a month, exporting them overseas. Which is sort of what it was sort of to scale back then. So as of right now, I would say no. Is it possible? Yes, but there'd be some big changes needed to achieve it. Yeah,
I agree. I think there's a lot of infrastructure changes, mindset changes, a lot to change. And who knows, we might have robots making trailers in 50 years. I hope not, but you never know.
Yeah, that's right.
So look, just before we depart, any final words of advice?
No, look, I think we've covered off a lot, and I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and have a chat. And as always, when you're up in Brisbane, come and hang out.
Absolutely, we'll try a new craft beer. Thank you very much, Ben. Lovely to have you on the show with a relatively new player in the market, obviously a very high quality player in the market. And how do people get in contact with you if they want to try that?
Look, either through Facebook, website, or email. Facebook is just Lustec, Lustec. Website www.lustec.com.au. All our contact details on there. Our website's live, so anybody can get in contact with us through that. You'll more than likely get in touch with myself or Chris Lusty, the owner. Will be the two main points of contact. So would love to have a chat with anybody that wants to discuss any trailers.
Perfect. And we'll have all those details in the show notes as well if you're able to get onto the show notes. But thank you again, Ben. Lovely having you on the show. And we look forward to hearing where Lustec goes in the next couple of years as well.
Yeah, you and me both.
So easy. All right. Well, thanks again, Ben. And as all our listeners, thank you for listening, watching, however you're consuming this content. We'll see you on our next show, and see you all shortly.
Thanks.